Then I'll take the 90-degree corner here and I'll press down and drag it through the flutes at an angle. Hello everybody, Paul Jones here with Painting with Paul, and today's tutorial I'd like to show you how I package up my paintings. The items that I use are quite simplistic, but they are tried and true, and I've used them for many customers around the world. So just to get started, I'd like to show you the products that I use. I have a metal ruler, a pencil. You can use a pen or a marker as well. I have an X-Acto knife. You can also use a utility knife for cutting cardboard. I have a roll of brown craft paper. And by the way, you don't have to go expensive. You can buy all these products like at simple places, Walmart, Dollar General, Dollar Tree. You don't have to spend a whole lot on packaging. A pair of scissors. I also have sheet plastic, which you can find in the painting section at pretty much any hardware store or Walmart, and this is under $1, so that also helps your painting be protected from the elements of rain and snow when you ship them. A roll of packaging tape, this is the canvas that I'll be showing you how to wrap up today. It's an 8x10 canvas. And it is also suspended. It's not on a piece of cardboard. This is just scrap cardboard. You can cut that from any box. And then I bought this so I can show you how to use the flutes to your advantage to make an outer wrap for a really strengthful box. So my first line of defense to keep the painting safe is we don't want any moisture on the back of this canvas here because it is not primed. So any moisture that gets settled in here and that could potentially go inside of here will eventually grow mold, or it could grow mold in the right environment. So we're going to pretend that this is a painting and we're going to wrap it in plastic first before we ship it. So I like to do, and I have a piece here that's more or less just the end of a roll. So much like gift wrapping, I'll just set it on here, and to protect the table that I'm working on, put just a piece of cardboard underneath it as a cutting board. And I want to overlap my canvas around 3 inches or so. It doesn't have to be perfect, as long as you can wrap it around the whole thing. And use my straight edge and my X-Acto knife. I'm just going to cut right here. It doesn't have to be perfect, just somewhat straight. And this comes folded up in many layers. So I'm going to wrap it down to the single layer. It's kind of hard to get it flat. But once you can get it flat like this, the first thing I do is take the painting and put it face down onto the clean plastic. The first edge that I wrap over it should be around the center mark, about like this. And again, I have done this time and time again, and not once, knock on wood, have I had any issues with damage. And bring the other side over to overlap that first edge. And I just cut the excess off. And you can discard this, or you can use it for another project. But since I'm just showing you, I'm just going to discard it for now. Once this is overlapped, and it's rather thin, so it's a little bit tough to work with, but it pays off well. We're going to go for our packaging tape. And the first thing we'll do is grab that overlapping edge and kind of pull it taut. Once you get stuck on there, kind of pull it this way to keep it taut. Then again on the outer edges, do the same thing on both sides here. Now once it's tight this way, I just turn the canvas, and this is going to be the same technique for whatever size canvas that you use. So to tuck the corners in, I just start one at a time on the corners. Grab it, fold it in, and tape it. I'm going to do it to both corners here. This is just a simple measure just to keep weather out. And the last step on that side is to pull it a little bit tight and then tape it in the middle. Like I said, it's much like gift wrapping. When it comes to these corners here, when you tape those down, you want to touch the tape to the plastic and just pull tension on it like this. And then we just repeat the same process on this side. Again, I have done this time and again for many, many years. It's tried and true. It's much cheaper than going and buying expensive packaging or hiring someone to package it for you. And then 2 more pieces to anchor these. And that's your first line of defense, is to keep it wrapped, so in case the postman or other delivery company decides to put in your step and it's pouring rain or snowing, at least you have some kind of thing to keep the moisture out. Okay, so once you get the plastic on, the next step in this process of my method of packaging stuff up is to use, and I pre-cut these pieces of cardboard here. These are just scrap pieces of cardboard. But what I have done is measure the 8 by 10 onto here. So if you can see how the flutes are going on this, I'm simply going to place this down and one underneath it so that it creates layers such as this. Obviously one is a side, and you can see how they aim this way. So the next layer I do is going to cross these flutes. So instead of aiming this way, they will be aimed this way. Almost like the concept behind the strength of plywood. So once I get the inner layers of the cardboard going the same direction, the very next thing I'm going to do is take the outer wrap. I've cut a piece of cardboard already so I can use it, so that these corrugations aim the opposite direction, again to add strength. Instead of this, where they can bend together, we're going to go like this. So what I do, I just straighten it up, and I'll start at one end, and I'll simply place it on the corners evenly. And because I'm going to be bending this around up here and then doing another bend over here, all the way to this side, I'm going to be bending over here to make one single wrap around there. So I'll take my pencil, and instead of going right up against the cardboard, I'm going to scoot it out to allow room for that bend. And I'll make one single mark, and I'll follow that corrugation all the way down to where it ends, knowing that it'll be a nice straight cut. So how I cut this is I take my metal ruler and just simply line up to where those marks are. And I'm not going to take my knife and cut all the way through. I'm just going to break that surface and just follow along, just cutting the top layer of paper. When you take your ruler away, you can see where that line is. I'll take my ruler on the edge and I'll widen that. Then I'll take the 90-degree corner here and I'll press down and drag it through the flutes at an angle. What that does is creates a 45-degree angle on both sides, so that when you fold it up, you have a nice bend. Let's see here. So once I get that first bend in there, I simply just customize it as I start to cut the next one. And I'll go to the next corrugation between the points here, and again I measure away from that edge, keeping about the thickness of cardboard away from there. Make a mark, follow that down, and make another mark. And then again, we're going to repeat the process of just breaking the surface paper on top of the corrugations to achieve another bend. It's very important to have a sharp knife, because ones that are jagged, they tend to tear and cut without making a nice clean slice. And again, I'm using the 90-degree corner here on the ruler, pressing down, and just drag it across. It creates a V shape and a 45-degree angle on the other side. So there's one. Here's two. We just simply lay it down. And you can see how it's starting to come together as a wrap. Again, repeating the process, go to the edge here and leave about a half a flute in here. Make a mark, follow that down, make another mark, and we're just going to repeat the cutting process once again. Not only does this serve as a good idea to ship paintings, but it also works if you're going to move with the painting. Providing it's not framed. If you have to move, you can just slide it back into this custom-made box here and still have the same protection you did when it was shipped to you. And then there's one final bend, or one final mark that needs to be done before cutting it. And when you're doing this, it's a good idea to make sure this is squared up by taking your hand and pushing down and pushing the bottom in, because if you cut it out here without pushing it in, you're going to overcut and leave too much material there. So it's a good idea to kind of hold it together on one side. Now this is going to be a cut, so we're going to go right along the edge there, such as that. Over here, we're going to follow that same flute all the way down. And that's where we're going to make our complete cut through. So without damaging the table I'm working on, I'm going to put an additional scrap piece underneath it to make that final cut. Now when I'm working on cutting through cardboard, I don't always make one cut through it. I'll make two passes through it just to make sure I have it. Just like that. So now that I have my wraparound, I'll call this the outer shell. Now you can see how that has come together. Right here we're going to have a bunch of excess. So again, I use scrap cardboard. So to make that happen, I'm simply going to line up this edge with this edge, and I'll make my mark over here and over here so I can cut the length all the way down. So when I wrap it up, all we have to do is come up with outer edges.